Legends Arceus does well, which I very much hope it does, it could potentially open up a whole new series of Pokemon games set in the past. Which got me to thinking, what would be the coolest concepts for Pokemon Legends games for each region? Starting with a really tricky one, Kanto. Gen 1 focused more on the future than the past. The big theme of the original games was technology and the potential dangers of using science to create life. Theoretically, we could go into the distant past and have the focus of the game be around Mew, but there's not much story around Mew except that it went extinct. I guess we could explore why Mew went extinct. Instead, I think it would be really cool if the game went into the more recent past and focused on the creation of Mewtwo. We could play as a member of Team Rocket, helping Giovanni gather stuff to create Mewtwo. Since the Nugget Bridge, we've all wondered what it would be like to be on Team Rocket, and this game would finally give us that chance. Our characters would slowly become more aware of the more criminal side to Team Rocket, as well as how dangerous Mewtwo could potentially be. But despite the potential dangers, Mewtwo would be born. Mewtwo would give a speech similar to what he thinks in Pokemon the first movie, and then he would destroy Cinnabar Mansion. He would talk about destroying everything, but then you would step in to stop him. After defeating Mewtwo in battle, he would reflect on humanity and the meaning of life, and then he would fly off to Cerulean Cave, lost in thought. So it would be like if this random Team Rocket character didn't exist, the whole Mewtwo situation would have been a lot worse. It's a pretty bold idea, so I doubt it will ever happen, but it would be pretty cool. Johto, on the other hand, has so many options for Pokemon Legends games. At first, I thought it would make sense to base it around Ho-Oh, but I figured this might anger Lugia fans. The reason I considered Ho-Oh over Lugia is that Ho-Oh rules over the beasts, which are Gen 2 Pokemon, whereas Lugia rules over the birds, which are from Gen 1. I guess there could be 2 Legends games for Gen 2, one for Ho-Oh and one for Lugia, but these would probably be totally different games for the most part, so I don't think that's very realistic. Instead, I think for Johto, the game would focus on Celebi. What makes this super interesting is that Celebi has the ability to travel through time. So instead of just focusing on one point in Johto's past, we could partner with Celebi to travel to different important points in history to try to undo the burning of the Brass Tower. We'd come to the conclusion that we couldn't save the tower without something worse happening, but we could save the Pokemon trapped in the tower. Honestly, I think this game has so much potential, and I'd love to see it really happen. For Hoenn, it's pretty obvious that it would focus on Rayquaza. We'd play as a young Draconid, maybe an ancestor of Lance or Claire, and we'd start off with a first stage dragon Pokemon. We'd have a few mentor figures that would teach us the ways of the Draconids, filling in some lore about the Hoenn region and the Pokemon universe as a whole. Throughout the game, we'd overcome various trials that would test our knowledge, compassion, and courage. We'd witness the first meeting of Groudon and Kyogre and catch Rayquaza to stop them. I feel like this Hoenn one is a little less creative than my other ideas, but that would probably make it easier to actually make. For Sinnoh, Pokemon Legends Arceus has already been announced. Not too sure what the story will be for it yet, but I made some videos on my theories in case you want to check those out. Links down below. For Unova, I think that the main legendary would be the dragon that Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem split from. We'd be in the time period where the two brothers were arguing about truth versus ideals. I think if this was applied to an actual situation, it would make their argument more grounded. Like maybe the ideals brother wants to improve the lives of people in Pokemon with a helpful but risky technology, whereas the truth brother believes that no one should have access to something with so much power. We would actually get to see the dragon split into Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem. The player character would seek out Kyurem and use it to resolve the arguments between the two brothers. But then their sons would resume the fighting, causing terrible destruction. You would then need to find and convince the Swords of Justice to come help put out the forest fire caused by the two sons fighting. They would reconcile and try to put the dragon back together, but they wouldn't be able to, so the ending would be bittersweet. I like the general idea of this game, but I feel like the execution of it would be really complicated, especially the ending. I don't know, maybe it would be better to have it end when the two brothers reconcile and just hint at the whole part with the son. For Kalos, of course it would be about Zygarde. Everyone thought we were going to get a Pokemon Z version in Gen 6, so this would be their chance to deliver on that. The story would take place immediately after the war in which AZ's Floette died. We'd play as an envoy of AZ, going around solving problems created by the war. For example, maybe we'd help an orphan catch their starter Pokemon, or be given a Pokemon that lost its trainer in the war. For completing these missions, people would give us Zygarde cells. They'd say something like, "This is all I have to reward you with," and it's actually something really valuable. Throughout the game, we'd collect more and more of them, not really understanding that their appearance hints at potential trouble brewing between Yveltal and Xerneas, aka the balance between life and death. We'd report back to AZ, allowing us to better understand his rationale at this time. Through this, we would see the events leading up to AZ resurrecting Floette. We would also watch the conflict grow between AZ and his brother, who just happens to be Lysander's ancestor. Thinking only Great Force would stop his brother, AZ would fire the ultimate weapon, causing Xerneas and Yveltal to go a bit crazy. crazy. AZ would realize his mistake and give the player the final Zygarde cell, which he'd been holding on to just in case the player ever turned on him. Then AZ and the player would team up to take on Xerneas and Yveltal in a double battle. The main story of the game would end with AZ beginning his journey to find Floette, leaving his brother in charge with the player character as his champion, aka the first champion of the region. Even though this Pokemon game would be pretty dark because it would be exploring the theme of loss, I think if done right, this could be the best Pokemon game ever created. Someone should really make a fan game of this just in case, because it would be epic. For Lola, it gets kind of tricky because there's surprisingly little said about the island's history. That's mostly because the king of Alola, Acerola's ancestor, burned all of the books related to Necrozma. It's difficult to say if whatever happened would make for an interesting game without more information, so I'm going to propose an alternate idea. What if Pokemon Adventures Necrozma took place in and around Megalopolis, and you played as one of the founding members of the Ultra Recon Squad? The game would start a bit before Necrozma came there from Ultra Space. The early parts of the game would be exploring the region, which would be an alternate reality historical version of Alola. It would be especially cool if the game didn't say that it was an alternate universe version of Alola, so everyone would assume that we were just in historical Alola. When Necrozma comes through, people would assume that we'd use the usual Solgaleo/Lunala to banish it. But instead, we'd trap Necrozma, and the audience would realize that they've been playing in this alternate reality the whole time. The region would include Poipole and a few other new Pokemon, hinting at the reveal to come, while still keeping it ambiguous enough to fool younger players. Another hint would be that the starting city would be in the location of the Temple of the Sun and Moon, but it would go unnamed until the end, when it would be revealed to be Megalopolis. I think adding more details about Megalopolis would be a great idea because it was barely explorable in the original games, something most people, myself included, complained about. Lastly, we've got Galar. I don't see a Pokemon Legends game for Galar being made anytime soon, since these are the most recent games at the time of recording this video. If they did though, I think that they would focus on concepts related to ancient England, like kings and knights. I wouldn't be surprised if Galar was the first region to have Pokemon gyms, considering their prominence in the region. Maybe these were originally places where knights held tournaments. The winners of these tournaments would become part of the king's personal guard, aka his Elite Four. You would play as a knight, and a large part of the story would focus on your rivalry with another knight. You and your rival would eventually be promoted to the Elite Four, sworn to protect the aging king. When the first darkest day happened, the king would try to pass it off like it was no big deal, like everything is fine and dandy. The other two Elite Four would obey the king, but you and your rival would team up to take them on and then challenge the king. After defeating the half-mad king, the two of you would take on Eternatus, thus ending the first darkest day. You would then become the rulers of the Galar region. In terms of catching Zacian and Zamazenta, I personally would love it if the main character and our rival got a puppy form of these good doggos as our starters. Mostly for the cuteness factor. Those are my ideas for Pokemon Legends games for each region. What are your ideas for this concept? Let me know in the comments. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow me on Instagram at KaylaCapsule for sneak peeks of upcoming videos. Bye!